and oh, can't see me. There we go.
There you go.
And really, I think captures the preservation as it in progress as it is right now. I'm going to start us out with a few questions for Howard and Jennifer. I'm really just going to ask the questions and then let the conversation go from there. But this is really meant to be an interactive event, and so we're really hoping to get some questions as well from everybody that's watching. Please put those into the chat, and then as they come up after we've gone through these few questions, we will get to yours. So first, so as I mentioned, the Roslyn Grist Mill was listed on Preservation Long Island's Endangered Historic Places list in 2015. How did you get from there to build the momentum to save the grist mill?
Good. I'll take that first, Tara. And I'm glad that film ran because I had the whole thing memorized, but I really didn't want to recite it all. But again, and we want to thank Florence Westergaard for doing such a great job on the film. It really did capture where the state of the gristmill is today, and hopefully we'll have another film where it shows it's going to be completed. But this has been a long road, and in fact, in 2015, we were listed on Preservation Long Island's Endangered Historic Places. And that was very important because it really gave publicity to the project itself, to the historic site. And when you're doing a restoration project like this, uh, people have to be aware of it, and so that immediately gave us some newsworthy awareness of the project and the need to do something. I mean, the first efforts to restore it by Nassau County started in 1976 for the bicentennial. And they had a lot of energy and a lot of plans, a lot of architectural plans, but they never had enough money behind it, and they never had a real force to do it. So in 2015, we were looking at this building as it kept starting to fall apart. And by getting it on Preservation Long Island's Endangered Historic Places list, it really did bring an awareness of it. And we used that. It appeared in Newsday, it appeared in the local papers, and we used that designation in all our grant applications. So that I think helped us. We initially got a $500,000 grant from the Gary Charitable Trust, as mentioned in the film, and the Garys were the founders of the Roslyn Landmark Society, and they had left a trust fund for historic preservation. So we started with that, and then we utilized that to get a $500,000 grant from New York State. And so it's very important on a project, again, to have media attention. And so, Preservation Long Island shares in some of the success of this project.
Okay. So the second question I have, and I think you touched on that a little bit, and you definitely did in the video as well, but maybe you can elaborate some more, is how did the fundraising work for the building? And also, do you have any tips for similar projects, ones that, may be more towards the beginning of their journey?
Yes, thank you, Tara. It was touched upon in the video that we formed the Roslyn Grist Mill Committee on or about 2015, and then received a grant from the Gary Charitable Trust in 2015 as well. So that kind of spearheaded our fundraising abilities from the start of that grant opportunity that we received. We've also, had very successful grants with New York State Office of Parks, Heritage, and Historic Preservation through New York State. We've also had success with the Robert David Lyon Gardner Foundation, which is located in Suffolk County. We also have support from Nassau County. We've received believe it or not, there was a 2006 EBA bond, environmental protection bonds, that we received way back when, and that we were able to implement a few years later. And also we received funding from Nassau County Parks as well. And as Howard has mentioned, and in the video, we're anticipating additional support from the county, hopefully this year into 2025. We've also, had a lot of support from the community, our members, other, foundations as well. We also did a match challenge for the Grist Mill, which supported us greatly. And that's, kind of where we went. We looked into different opportunities for fundraising, and that's kind of where we went. And another thing was the Tim Bester contribution, which Howard can mention again. That was mentioned in the video, that you just never know, when someone wants to support the project. If Howard, you want to comment on that
Yeah,
again?
it's pretty funny because Dr. Tim Bester is a descendant of the person who built the original grist mill on the site in 1701. And he, out of the blue, he calls me up and says, "I'd like to visit the restoration site because my relatives, were the person who put the first grist mill there." And I said, "Oh, sure, I would love to do it." And the following month, he came over and he was very impressed with all the work that was being done. He was very emotional about it too. He said, "This is my family legacy, this building too." And so he asked immediately, he says, "Well, how are you funding all this?" And I went through all the funding is, but I said, "We're going to need more. We're going to need more." And he said, "Well, I think I could help." And I said, and I go, "Oh, that's great." And I thought he was giving a contribution of like $100 or something. I said, and then I closed. I said, "Well, what are you thinking of, Dr. Bester?" And he says, "I'm going to give between 200 and 300." I said, "Oh, 200 and $300. That's great." He goes, "No, 200 to $300,000."
Mm.
And I was taken aback, and sure enough, he gave $250,000 to the project. So as Jen says, you never know where the money's going to come from, but you have to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. The worst I can say is no.
Right. But if you never ask, then you never know, right?
You don't know. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Um, so, following up on that, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges during the preservation process to date?
I can take that real quick. Some of the challenges, obviously, raising funds. Raising money is our biggest challenge. As we mentioned, we do have grants from New York State, local, federal, and sometimes they're matching grants. Like the state grants are matching grants. So we need to have funds on hand in order to pay for the construction and then get reimbursed. Excuse me, I meant matching / reimbursable grant. So that's been challenging for us. We've been able to manage it, but we need to pay for the construction in order to get reimbursed. So that's been one challenge we faced. We also face prevailing wage, being a county-owned property and also receiving state and federal funding. We need to do prevailing wage. And for some maybe that don't know, maybe do, prevailing wage is basically union wages, whether or not they're union or not. We need to pay those wages, which is, as mentioned in the video, typically double than maybe having a private job. So we faced that as well. We've also had scheduling issues with construction. This is a very specialized restoration when it comes to the timber frame, and additional work that our timber framer, as mentioned, is in Vermont, and his workers are also in Massachusetts, and not on Long Island. Right. So we need to schedule and make time for them to allocate a week or two to be here and to complete work that needs to get done. So that takes time as well. We also potentially we have to follow historic preservation guidelines, meaning, what we can and cannot do. which doesn't hinder us much. But as mentioned in the video, removing the vents. We had 15 vents in there that needed repair. We can't take everything at once. Um, you know, stuff has to stay on site. So that wasn't, maneuvering a bit, which takes time. And that, we were all okay with that, but that's why, the project takes time and that we've run into some issues, but
Right.
it hasn't hindered us, just a little longer than maybe some would expect.
A big challenge also was the foundation, figuring out what the new foundation was,
Yeah.
how to raise the building, lower the building. And we had a Long Island firm, XCAB, did the foundation, and they've been a real pleasure to work with. They're really into the project itself. They love the history of it, and they've been great to work with. So we are
Mhm.
using some Long Islanders on the
Oh,
project.
sorry. Yes, I apologize. We are local guys. Yes, definitely. Yes.
Um, as you mentioned in the video, one of the grants you received was the Save America Treasures grant, which I think, many people see as like the most beautiful, wonderful grant you can get in the country. It's not one that a lot of places on Long Island have ever been able to take advantage of. So could you speak a little bit to what that process was like, and what do you think it was that got you over the finish line? Because they get, you know, many, many applicants every year. And so it's really the shining stars that are the ones that actually receive the grants. So could
Yeah.
you, speak to that process a little bit?
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy. It really was the involvement of our Congressman Tom Suozzi on the project. He got involved with this project when he was the county executive in 2009, and he certainly has been aware of the project over the years. And I remember we invited him to the grist mill when he was the congressman. I think it was about 2021 to look at the grist mill and to understand what we were doing here. So it really was getting him involved in the project again. And I know at the end of the tour, he asked, "Well, what can I do for you?" And I immediately said, "Money. We need money." And so he went back and he looked at all the grants that were available, and one of them was a Save America's Treasures grant. He was in 2022. He was had allocation of 15 projects, I believe, and he chose the Save America's Grant Program as one of us for us. And the restriction on that is that we needed to be on the National Register of Historic Places, and we needed his support. We had a pretty long application that Jen worked on, and we were very successful with that. It took about a year or so to get it finally approved, even after we were designated. But interesting enough, now we're getting reimbursements from the grant, and it's actually amazingly efficient. We put in
Yeah.
the reimbursement, and I say what, it takes 3 days. We get our funding back too, and it goes right into the bank account. So the key was really making contact with a person who had the power to, initiate the grant, our congressman, and knowing also the application. What are the important aspects of the project that it would get approved on the national register, not from National Park Service, who administers the Save America's Treasures grants.
Wonderful. So I have a couple questions from the audience. The first one is, in contrast to Roslyn, which has the rarity of paid staff and funding, what is to be done for neighborhoods without resident support or are increasingly unwilling to restore significant endangered sites? It's a big question.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
And we don't have a big staff. We have
No.
two full-time people too. And again, some of that is supported by the community. Some of it is supported by the Gary Charitable Trust, and so, you know, And I know some historic societies that have no staff at all, but they do amazing restoration work. Calneck Peninsula uh, Society does a great job. So it's a matter of getting volunteers together and try to figure it out. Some societies use grant writers. We do all our grants internally as well. So, they're pretty complex, but they can be done. Um, Jen, do you want to comment on it?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it's not easy. Yes, we are currently a staff of two full time, but I have to say, back in 2015, it was Howard and I, and a few years after that, I was one person, and Howard's a volunteer as co-president, and our board is a volunteer, and we all came together, and we all, formulating the committee, the Gristmill committee, helped us to form our grants and to state our case for funding and reach out and look to what's available for historic preservation. And you just have to try. It takes time, it takes effort, but it's doable. And I think, New York recognizes that, especially for the island and wherever you may be. I think they recognize that. And they're looking for opportunities to preserve and protect, our history.
And I think I haven't said I wouldn't participate, but I'm just going to chime in a little bit. But I think often, I mean, you look at where the grist mill is now and you see all of the success, but really with all of these projects, you start with small attainable goals that you build.
Mhm.
And so in almost any situation, there's something that you can do, and doing that one thing, that having that one small success that you can then build on can lead to great things. Um,
Yeah, we started with baby steps,
yeah,
and
exactly.
we had to build up.
Right. And getting publicity for the project is
Yeah,
really key. I mean, Newsday, it really gets a lot of attention, but we captured the attention of New York City TV
Yeah.
too. So we've been on CBS several times. We have copies of it on our website, roslynlandmarks.org. And, you know, New York media does an amazing job of capturing the story, and they do it so efficiently. We basically have a whole series of 2 to 3 minute videos, news videos of the project, again, that we utilize for grant applications as well. So you're really getting professional videos being done just by getting them interested in the story itself.
Mhm.
So a second question I have, realizing the increasing effects of man-made climate change, what mitigation efforts have been introduced to protect against storm surge flooding? So
Well,
I guess just speaking to the potential impacts of climate change, and if you had to incorporate any of that into your planning for the project.
yeah, we rely on John Wade Associates to do that when they're designing everything. Uh, John Wade Associates, pretty well known, one of the leading historic architectural firms in the country. Sagamore Hill, the Nassau County Courthouse is examples of that. And they take that into account, climate change. Um, I'm amazed this building has survived for 300 years.
I would say, yeah.
Really think about all the hurricanes, all the storms. And again, the where it's located, it's right on Hempstead Harbor, right at the head of Hempstead Harbor, and the ponds are right in front of it as well. And like I said in the film, there's 24/7 of a flow of water going through there. Reason why it was a good location for a grist mill. So when it comes to climate change and designing this building, we rely heavily on our architects.
Wonderful. I don't know if we have any other questions. I don't see any others in the chat. Elizabeth, can you confirm that that's it? I think so. So I just wanted to thank um, all of you, for Howard and Jamie, who's been off screen, and Jennifer for helping us put together this great presentation tonight. I really am excited for the second part of this in person, and for this conversation to be able to continue and allow people to come and visit the site in person. I still do think there are a lot of preservation lessons that we can learn from the journey that the Roslyn Grist Mill has been on. And, as we continue to see um, it continue its journey, we can see the students. I think you mentioned that they were, Pratt students. These
Yes.
are all young um, preservationists training to be, um, the future.
Yeah, it was historic preservation, some are
Exactly.
architectural, so it's like
And
a whole,
they go around, they have their own preservation in progress they
yeah,
do. Um,
yeah.
they're
Mhm.
actually coming to see we're installing a new HVAC system at Joseph Lloyd Manor.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and they're coming next week to see that. So they're really getting this hands-on experience that we also try to provide through these types of events. So we will have, as I mentioned, the second part of the Roslyn Grist Mill preservation in progress when it's time and when it's ready. And we'll also have the coal train home in May, because they've been doing a lot of great work there. Um,
And we'd like to thank Preservation Long Island
I was
for
gonna say
everything
that.
that you guys do, and you are a major resource here for historic restoration and preservation, and we appreciate all of your efforts.
And thank you for having us. We
Yes.
appreciate it. Thank
thank you.
you for highlighting our project.
Yes, so and just a few. So I'm going to send out. Um, I've recorded this, so the Q&A will go out to everybody that's signed up for this tour or an event, and I'm also going to send a link to the YouTube video, so everybody will be able to watch that at their leisure as well. So thank you so much.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Good
Have a
night,
good
everybody.
night.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye. Take care.
Yep,
Bye.
you too.